David Clarke. Sheriff, what do you expect for tonight?
Well, what bothers me from afar is that nobody in Ferguson, Missouri seems to be able to get their arms around this thing. This never should have gotten to this point. It did. And so what I did was look back at some of the pre-existing conditions before these riots broke out. Look, Neil, nothing justifies the rioting and the looting. That is not peaceful protest. That is criminal behavior. Peaceful protests I encourage. We all encourage it. It's part of our democracy. But I have to ask what the mayor of Ferguson was doing over the last 30 years with the changing demographics in the suburb of Ferguson. In 1980, the city of Ferguson was 85% white. In 2010, it's 70% black. Its police department is less than 6% black officers. And so the changing demographics of the institutions in Ferguson have not kept up. And that breeds the mistrust that's going on. There's an acrimonious relationship between the police and the black community in Ferguson. That's not like any town USA. Those things have to be managed, and mayors have to have a plan. I want to know if the mayor had reached out previously, now it's a little late, to community leaders, to pastors, identified people who were connected to the community that could help him at a time like this.
Sheriff, do you think they over-responded? In other words, with the use of force, they just overdid it?
Well, that's hard for me to say. I don't have all the facts that are going on the ground in that situation, but I know that that's a question that's been asked all across America about the militarization of police departments. And that's a slippery slope. You know, I advocate for police to have equipment and training to be able to keep officers safe and keep communities safe. But now with the wars winding down, there's all this military equipment that's coming back home, and the federal government, through grants, is allowing law enforcement agencies to purchase this stuff. Some of it might be legitimate. There's no public discussion going on, though. Police agencies are just justifying it that it's free, and it's really not free. But when police start to equip and train themselves like they're a military unit, which they are not in America, we don't want that, then sometimes they start to behave that way. And that's not a criticism, that's a concern by the public, and it's a legitimate one.
It comes at a time, I know, Michael Bloomberg had funded your opponent, essentially, because we have too many guns, said that we have to address that first and foremost. His very pricey effort to do so failed with you. But do you think guns could be at the heart of this, and that this turns out of control, to Michael Bloomberg's point, because they are?
No, I think that's misguided. I think he's exploiting this situation to further his crusade and his campaign of gun control in America. Look, Neil, you know as well as I do this acrimonious relationship between minority communities and the police has been going on for a half century in America. There are cities that have done a better job by making sure that their police forces, their sheriff's offices, reflect the face of a diverse community, including their upper and command staff. So at times like this, those individuals who have credibility, at least with the leaders in the black community, feel that there's some level of trust and feel that their grievances, and again, I'm not justifying what's going on in Ferguson. That's criminal behavior, the looting and the rioting, but they want to feel a sense of trust and that somebody actually cares about their grievances and addresses them. And it appears to me from what I'm reading, and I've been keeping up with this, and only from what I read, that's been ignored. And then, so that shooting that happened the other day, and I don't have the facts as to what went on there, but that served as the flashpoint for what we're seeing right now. This city's on fire.
But you think that could have been avoided if early on the police force represented, let's say, the racial breakdown of the community?
I think that's one aspect, because these things are, they're multifaceted and they're complex. If you look at the political structure in Ferguson, it's the same thing there. It does. I looked and I saw the school board has 6 members in a city of 70% black. 5 of the members are white. And I'm not playing the race card on this, but 5 are white and 1 is Hispanic. And so I'm pointing this out because it leaves people to feel like they're out of the political structure, out of the political policy-making process, that, where policies are created that affect them. So I'm just saying that these things have to be addressed by leadership beforehand. I've done such a thing. I've created a relationship here with certain pastors in the black community and other community leaders and activists, legitimate ones, who are here for good. And I would call on those individuals when I start to sense, because you have to have a sense that, you know what, this thing is simmering and a flashpoint could occur and this thing could spiral out of control like in Ferguson. And you have to have that sense that something's about to happen, and that's when you reach out to those individuals. But the gun, as far as the gun issue, nobody was talking about the gun issue 50 years ago, yet there was still an acrimonious relationship between black communities and police departments. And we had an incident in New York with the chokehold.
Right.
Same type situation that got the community, up in arms and calling for an investigation. But you didn't see rioting. I think you didn't see rioting in New York.
Al Sharpton was involved there in the New York case. He's now involving himself in this case. What do you think of that?
Well, what concerns me when I hear, the new Black Panther Party, Al Sharpton, and some of the other individuals coming to town, some of these individuals are coming to town to stoke racial animosity. That's no good. We don't need that at this point.
Well, do you think Al Sharpton's I'm sorry, sir, do you think Al Sharpton's doing that?
Well, I'll say this about Al Sharpton. He's a divisive individual, okay? He just is. Al Sharpton should call for calm. Maybe he has, but then maybe he's been ineffective at doing it. So those individuals that want to descend on Ferguson to, quote, help out, ought to be the ones calling for calm and ought to be the ones that are down there for good. But again, some of these groups, let's not kid each other. Some of these groups are down there to stoke racial animosity, and I find it very problematic.
I'm sorry, sir. Real quick, we understand when Governor Jay Nixon, the governor of Missouri, addresses residents in that community, one of the things he's going to be talking about are all these, I guess, concurrent investigations. There's an FBI probe going into this, a state probe going into this. That's a lot of probes going on at the same time. What do you make of that?
Well, what needs to happen is all those entities need to get together and form some joint operation, maybe a couple from the feds, maybe a couple from the state, some of the locals, so everybody's represented there. And, it has to try to give the people of Ferguson at least faith in this system and in this investigation, that it's going to be objective and it's going to be very open, because that needs to happen too. So that's how I would approach it. I'd put together a group of individuals representing all those, because you're right, you're going to have competing investigations. That's going to mess things up.
Sheriff, thank you very, very much. We know you've had a busy time yourself. David Clarke, Jr., survived an onslaught of money to try to topple him on an issue that just did not resonate. David Clarke, Jr., Milwaukee County Sheriff. Thank you, Sheriff, again.